Welcome to Rethinking Trade with Lori Wallach. I'm Lori Wallach, and I am very excited to have today for a special election-related session, Zephyr Teachout. Her day job is as a well-known law school professor at Fordham, but she also has experience running for Congress in a New York district that is, like so many in this country, full of small towns and people who've lost jobs to hyperglobalization, and a certain sentiment that she's going to talk about because she just wrote something in the New York Review that I really recommend everyone read. Published on October 13th, which you can see on our website, which is www.rethinktrade.org. And it lays out the politics and policy of trade and globalization and how that could literally decide this election. Welcome to the podcast, Zephyr.
So happy to be on.
You start this piece talking about what you learned running for Congress, and that motivated you to write this piece. Give us the top line.
I was running for Congress in 2016 in a swing district in the Hudson Valley. I fairly handily won the Democratic primary. It's the area around Poughkeepsie, not Poughkeepsie itself, Ulster County. It's several different counties. It's a huge district that had gone heavily Obama, but had a Republican incumbent Congress member who was retiring. People don't necessarily think of the Hudson Valley as part of post-industrial or industrial America, but when we did internal polling, what you would think of as a trade profile basically polled the highest and incredibly high. We had 93% of likely voters saying that they wanted a candidate who would, quote unquote, bring jobs home and support manufacturing and farming in America again. And what I didn't write about, but was so interesting being inside, is as the Democratic candidate, I was working with the National Democratic Operatives. And they weren't necessarily going to ask these questions. They weren't starting off thinking, oh, we might ask about trade. Of course, as the candidate, so I could make those decisions. I just found that over and over again, there was incredible frustration and anger at NAFTA, anger about China taking our jobs, anger about the loss of IBM. And at the time, remember, this is Trump, Hillary Clinton. And this is right in the midst of the big TPP fight. But Clinton at this point has already kind of publicly disavowed the TPP. But as far as people I met, they had no idea about that. They just associated Hillary Clinton with her husband's making NAFTA a priority. They associated Hillary Clinton with Obama pushing the TPP. And they associated Trump with being opposed to NAFTA.
So TPP, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, NAFTA on steroids. It was a very bad idea. It did not ultimately go into effect because the majority in Congress refused to support it, thank goodness. But what happened in that district?
I've been thinking about it a lot because here we are in mid-October. I really remember vividly each day in October, and you could feel the swing happened. We were looking at our internal polling, which was showing me up, but also Hillary Clinton up in the district. And then even before the polling started showing a real flip, I could feel it. And I could just really feel the shift away from Clinton. And I do remember it was a few nights before the election when my pollster called me and he said, "You're going to lose. The numbers are bad. Except there's one thing funky about the numbers because it also shows Clinton losing." And that can't be true. I watch swing districts closely. And of course, my old district, which is now split in two. And I see the current New York 19 Democratic candidate. And I think he's running a great campaign. His name is Josh Riley. And he's running on trade policy. One of his big recent ads is about not just what he's going to do, but saying to people in the district, I see you. I have seen how so many jobs got offshored and my family members lost jobs and my family members' friends lost jobs. And I saw what happened with IBM. And then on the affirmative side, he's saying, yeah, we need to have some smart tariffs. Instead of what I think so many Democrats are doing now, which frankly has me tearing my hair out, is running away from tariffs without understanding what tariffs mean politically to people.
That is one of the most compelling things about your piece, which has been flying around in Democratic circles, because I don't know about you, but the way it looks like to me is while in 2020, when the sting was still fiery hot, the top of the ticket got why they needed to talk about manufacturing and trade and offshoring and jobs and what had happened to communities across the country being hollowed out by the lunatic Bush Clinton, Bush Obama way of doing trade. But now here it is just 4 years later, and there seems to be an aversion to talking about, number one, the fact that Trump made a ton of promises he didn't follow through on, but also the Biden-Harris administration has some bragging rights. They did get the highest rate of investment in creating new factories in the United States in 30 years. I mean, Trump said he'd end offshoring, and 200,000 jobs are offshored. Yet here, the Biden-Harris team did the stuff they didn't even promise to do, and they're not bragging about it. So what do you make of that?
I have been totally perplexed. I mean, what we should have learned in 2016 is that Trump found this big, wide opening to be blaming trade deals. That on its own was a huge part of what he was doing. It wasn't necessarily about his promise. It was about his ability to say, somebody did this to you. Name the villain, right? So it seems like we should have learned that in 2016. And then, of course, there's this really extraordinary pivot with the Biden administration and really building a different and exciting framework for trade and connecting smart tariffs to manufacturing. But here we are again. And for a while, Trump wasn't talking about it so much. But then about maybe 6 or 8 weeks ago, his little brain went back and remembered the magic words and started using those same words again. NAFTA, tariffs. And to be a little sympathetic, part of the puzzle for a campaigner right now is that, the Biden administration hasn't done a great job explaining what the Biden administration has done. I saw a tweet once which said that there's been this wonderful transformation in Biden's industrial policy, but the Obama team still controls the comms department. So I get it that there's a double challenge for Harris, which is real. One is that things are better, but you can't pretend they're amazing yet. It takes a while. And the second is that Biden has really not communicated how significant a change this is. Having said all that, if Harris went out there and ran on strong, smart tariffs to protect American jobs against cheating by China, tariffs to partner with strong investments in domestic manufacturing, she could then refer to what Biden has done, but also just own it and name the villain again, which is the 30 years of bad policy. And then just say, look, Trump didn't follow through on his promises. Frankly, sometimes I don't understand what's going on. And what they're doing instead, Lori. So I'm imagining if I'm running again, right? And I'm in my district, and you want air cover for a strong industrial policy, right? You want the top of the ticket, the Democrats writ large, to be associated with smart tariffs and investing in manufacturing. And instead, what has happened is so many Democrats who think they're helping Harris are focusing on the numbers associated with when Trump says the word tariff. When Trump talks, he just makes up numbers. I mean, he said as much, but they're focusing on, they say Trump promises to do all these things that are disastrous. It's true, they would be disastrous. But as far as voters are concerned, Trump has basically set a trap. And I feel like Democrats have walked into it. And the trap is, I'm going to say crazy things about tariffs. You're going to say what's wrong with my crazy things about tariffs. And all voters are going to hear is there's two parties. One is in favor of tariffs, one's opposed to tariffs. And I want to be with the party that's in favor of tariffs because I want to protect my domestic manufacturing or my domestic jobs.
So this is something you've been talking about since the beginning of the year. If you go back to our website, www.rethinktrade.org, where you can see Zephyr's amazing piece, and also you can see a fact sheet on tariffs and the strategic use of tariffs. Opinion research shows exactly what Zephyr is saying, which is there is an emotive value now attached to tariff. It now is translated into standing up for my job, standing up for me. And interestingly, the data shows that regardless of whether tariffs delivered on more manufacturing jobs, does not matter, which because they didn't do the other half, which the Biden-Harris team did, which they didn't get the big boom in industrial jobs, which you can see swings to voting Trump, even if they didn't work, because of their emotional symbolic value. And the pollsters looking at this basically say, do not pick on the details. It has now become a value-laden fight.
I'm laughing, but I'm crying. By the way, the resource is absolutely invaluable in internecine fights I have with friends on tariffs. Because so many people have walked into Trump's trap, there is this weird elite sense that all tariffs are bad. It's kind of like a reverse fetishization. It's like, okay, this is just a weird way to talk about it. We don't talk about taxes that way. We don't talk about subsidies that way. There is a really weird sense in which the word tariff and the headlines do it. But frankly, it's not just the headlines, it's the content of these pro-Harris pieces. And Mark Cuban going out there and talking over and over, going to Pennsylvania and basically, you're not too in the weeds. What you hear is, okay, my candidate does not like tariffs. That's the level at which most people are going to hear it. I'm literally banging my head against the wall. This is really hurting Harris. Now, whether they are sort of too deeply embedded in the Bill Clinton, Obama, ultra globalization era, or whether for whatever reason they're coming at this without an understanding, they're actually shooting themselves in the foot. I mean, the darker view is that big money has taken over inside the campaign. But even if I'm a billionaire and I want Harris to win, I wouldn't be doing this. It's like, what are you doing? You're hurting your own candidate. What do you think, Lori?
I have a theory that it is half what you just described. Because it's branded with Trump, there is an automatic revulsion. But smart tariffs combined with investment get the jobs you want. There are 200,000 more manufacturing jobs in the economy today under the Biden-Harris administration than at any time during Trump, including pre-COVID.
I'm thinking about what that means to people's lives and what that means to communities and what that means to families. It's a really, really meaningful change. So I just want to talk about the problem of, if Trump did it, it's infectious, and so we can't touch it, is a real problem. But then there's some areas in which that's not true, where Harris is going out of her way to neutralize, not on tariffs. And to me, that's got to be big money. And part of the reason that big money is stupid, I was thinking about this today with Mark Cuban, is because it doesn't affect their lives. Like, you can afford to be stupid if you are a billionaire who kind of prefer Harris wins, but is still going to have all your yachts. Nothing will fundamentally hurt Cuban one way or the other, but it will fundamentally hurt the people throughout this country. And so Cuban can go off the cuff and try to signal to everybody in Pennsylvania and Michigan and North Carolina that you've got a tariff candidate and an anti-tariff candidate hurting his own candidate. So how to fix it? One of the wildest parts of running in that campaign 8 years ago was how quickly things shifted in just a few days and in just a few weeks. So, although I, of course, would have loved it if Harris had been out there with this vision from, July on, I think there is an opportunity in the last week to come out and answer the question that so many people have, which is, okay, just tell us how you see the world. Who are the bad guys? Why am I here? Give me a few basic tools on the economy. Show me that you're going to be tough and fight for my jobs. Show me that you are willing to stand up to, really, really powerful forces. One of the ways to show that you're stronger than Trump is to talk about villains who aren't Trump. Talk about NAFTA.
So here's an interesting twist. Since Zephyr's piece came out on the 13th and we first spoke with her, on October 18th, Vice President Harris gave a speech at a UAW Union Hall where she actually started talking about stuff. So Zephyr was kind of prescient. Whoever your candidate is, This issue is one that is incredibly motivating to an enormous number of people. As these last weeks of the campaign play out, we're going to see how this issue rides. In the meantime, I want to recommend Zephyr's piece. Again, it's at our website, www.rethinktrade.org. It's a historic tour of the politics of trade that is really impactful and lays out a lot of the facts that she and I were discussing, but in the context of someone who was on the ground running for Congress in exactly one of these many places, because it's not just Wisconsin, Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania. She was in New York, where people's lives and communities have been so deeply impacted. So until next time, thank you so much for listening. This is Lori Wallach with Rethinking Trade with Lori Wallach.